Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I am doing a very cash setup. I'm using my vlogging camera to record this video because it was out, it had full battery, and I'm just making this quite a chilled vid. Got myself a Moroccan mint tea. Question number 1 on the Q&A, what is your favourite tea? Moroccan mint. I actually prefer it to peppermint. I don't know why, I think it's like a slightly sweeter mint flavour, taste, scent. In today's video, I thought it would be nice to do a Q&A, which I did say in last week's video, and I asked you guys to leave a comment on my most recent Instagram picture with your questions. So I have gone through and I've selected any that I thought would be nice to answer. What did you pick for your GCSEs and why? Gosh, that was a really long time ago now. So I picked, aside from the standard ones you had to take, which was like science, English, maths, RE, the 4 that I picked were French, business studies, art and textiles. I was actually really happy with my GCSE choices. At this point, I had no idea what I wanted to do or where I wanted these to take me, or had any idea what I wanted to pick for A-levels. But I was really happy with those choices because I enjoyed those subjects a lot, and that was mainly why I picked them. Business studies was a bit of a weird one. I'm not sure why I picked that. I think I thought I'm gonna want to create my own business at some point because I don't want to go to uni. Therefore, I should have a little bit of business knowledge under my belt. It was the most useless GCSE. I learnt nothing in that. I think maybe my teacher just wasn't the best. But yeah, I couldn't tell you anything I learnt in business studies GCSE, if I'm honest. I did get a C though, so wasn't too bad. What did I get in French? I think I got a C in French, or maybe a B, which I wasn't hugely disappointed with. However, I had been learning French since I was about 8 or 9 years old, and at this point I was 16, so you know, half my life I'd been learning French, and now I still couldn't speak French to you, which I don't understand. It's almost like my brain is a sieve when it comes to other languages. It's something I would really like to pick back up, but I was doing French for 8 years. How am I not fluent in French? I don't know. I'm a bit disappointed with myself, if I'm honest. I don't think I really took it that seriously, and I thought it was a bit uncool, and I thought it wouldn't be something I would ever need in life. So I didn't give it my full attention, I think. Which is a shame, because now as a 28-year-old, I would really like to be able to say I could speak 2 languages, and I can't. I know very basic French, and I'm a bit gutted about that. I think I got an A star in art and an A in textiles, so I was happy with that. How do you cope balancing work, family and fans into your everyday life? I don't really think about like viewers as having to fit into my everyday life, because if I happen to be walking down the street and I bump into somebody, that's not something I'm like fitting in, that's just something that tends to happen. But fitting in family life and like friends and work is much harder, because as I get more and more busy and live more and more of an adult lifestyle and have responsibilities like paying bills and a pet, you do get less time for those things, and I think that's quite apparent. Like, you have all, if you've stuck around for a while, you've all kind of grown up with a lot of us YouTubers, and you've seen that change happening where people kind of stay a bit more in their own lane and focus a lot more on what they're doing and building their own lives, and when you become an adult, that is just something you have to do, which obviously is enjoyable, but it does mean that you spend less time with friends, or you have to plan time in with your family. And as I don't actually live near my family, I do have to plan that time. And when my calendar is really full, that often means overlapping sometimes. So if I've got a really busy week on, it's actually quite nice if like my mum is here kind of helping out, or just being around, so that in those little moments I do get where we can sit down and have dinner or watch my favourite TV programme in the evening, she's there too, and that's quite nice. And the same with friends, and a lot of my friends are busy and we're all doing the same thing, but that one is a lot harder to try and juggle, and I am the sort of person that quite likes to bounce off other people's energy. So if I find that I've not spent time with a friend or my family, or, you know, someone outside of like our family life, like myself and Alfie and Nala, I do find that I start to be a bit more withdrawn. So I do think it's very important, even if you have the most busy schedule and busy like work life, that you set time aside to see your family and make effort to meet up with friends when you can, and really like utilize that time. It's almost like a bit of a battery recharge, and I really like it. But it does get more difficult to balance as you get older. So if you're watching this and you're still in school, make the most of that time where after every day the bell goes and you're like, what shall I do this evening? I don't know, should we all go down to the rec and hang out at the field? That time, you will not get that time back. When did you get your second ear piercing? Did it hurt? And also, what made you do it? So I got my second ear piercing in April last year. It was very last minute spontaneous decision, which is really not like me at all, and I felt quite like proud of myself for doing it. I had wanted to get a second piercing for quite a while. I liked my original piercing, but I much prefer to feel like I have a lot more going on my ears. One day when we went to stay with Tanya and Jim, Tom was like, yeah, I think I might go and get my third ear pierced. A third hole put into my ear. So me, Alfie and Tan literally jumped in a taxi and went to Liberty, went to Maria Tash and got a piercing. But yeah, I don't know, I think I was just feeling really spontaneous that day. I'm glad I did it. I was a little bit nervous, I'm not gonna lie, only because I couldn't remember what it felt like to have my ears pierced. I think I was like 13 or 14 when I had mine done, so that was a wee while ago. Is it okay not to know what you want to do with your future? I feel like I may have mentioned this before, but growing up, one of my biggest things that I dealt with internally was not knowing what I wanted to do when I grew up. I had people around me, friends, other school, like classmates or other people I was at school with, who all had a very clear path and a very clear vision of where they wanted to go in their life and in their careers. And whether that was quite short term or extremely long term, I felt like everyone around me knew what it was that they A, wanted to do, or B, kind of really enjoyed. So they at least had a very clear path to go down, and I hated that I didn't have that, and no amount of sitting down and really thinking about it ever made it come to me. And that was very frustrating and very scary, because you're so aware that you need to grow up and you need to become an adult and you need to move out of your parents' home. And I feel like I had a very isolated view of the world. I didn't really know how much houses cost, or that you could rent a house, or I just didn't know these things, and they weren't teaching us them in school. We didn't learn about mortgages and, you know, buying a car or buying your first house, or even things like becoming self-employed or going down a slightly different career route that wasn't just going to uni and writing a personal statement. So that was very scary. Although at the time I felt like I was the only one, I do feel like this is a huge thing, especially when you get to the age of like 13, 14, 15, 16, when you have to start making those decisions like, what GCSEs do you want to take? Because instantly you're like, is this going to affect my future? Yes, it is in some way, although maybe not so much as it does as you think it will. That doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? I was picking subjects I enjoyed and that I thought would be useful. And I enjoyed school, I really did. I enjoyed my subjects. I had great friends and we had an amazing time. In fact, I look back at school and I only really have fond memories, which is so lucky and so rare, and I'm really pleased about that. But I just have that kind of memory of feeling the kind of drop in the pit of your stomach, like waking up every day thinking, what's my life gonna be and what is my career going to be, because I know what I like, but I don't know if that's what I want to do. I think it's perfectly okay to feel that way, because I bet there's so many other people that feel that way as well. And in life, things kind of happen how they're meant to happen, and you will slot into something, whether you then discover that's not for you, or it helps you to discover what is for you, and then you kind of move on from there. But I think it was the kind of daunting, I need to know now, which I guess you don't always need to know. It's more about experience and finding out for yourself, I think. Who was your celebrity crush when you were younger? Leonardo Dicaprio, because I'd watched Titanic and absolutely fell in love with him. Who else? Michael Owen. That was a very short-lived one. Jack Ryder from EastEnders. Absolutely obsessed with him. Thought he was real, because I just thought soaps were real back then. Who else? David Beckham. I'm trying to remember all the posters I had on my wall. Oh, okay. One of my biggest crushes, and looking back through all my old diaries, was like top of the list always, was Orlando Bloom. I loved him so much because I had been to the cinema to see Lord of the Rings, and I'd fallen in love with him as Legolas, and then I fell in love with him in everything else he was in. Also, Ashton Kutcher is another one who I absolutely loved. And that was it, I think. That was most of the people that I fancied. Yeah. I used to list them all in order of top 10 in my diary. Someone has put, do you have a private Instagram, Twitter and Facebook? Do you feel like every time you go on any of the social medias, you are working? Sometimes. Whoa, there's a huge bird outside. That's like prehistoric. Sometimes I do feel like that. It depends what I'm doing, because if I'm just looking at what my friends have been up to, I stop myself and think, you are aimlessly scrolling, you don't need to see what someone had for lunch, and you don't need to see someone moaning about something else. Just text your friend and say, hey, how are you? What have you been up to? In that instance, I do stop myself, because sometimes I think it's very easy to use social media as a way of feeling like you've interacted with someone when you actually haven't. And I discovered this when I had my detox over the new year, because instead of looking at what people were doing on their Instagram story or on Twitter and thinking, oh, I know what they've done now, but that's not you interacting with someone and actually asking them and actually showing that you care about what someone's doing. And I'm a little bit worried that that's the direction social media is going in a sense that people could just sit and watch my video or see me out for breakfast on Insta story and think, oh, well, I don't need to ask her what she's done because I already know. But then that's when you start losing the communication between people. Do you know what I mean? I feel like a granny, like sat here like, it's gonna ruin the communication. But I do think it's very important not to let that appear that that's a way of communicating when it isn't. So whenever I feel like that, I stop myself and I'm like, no, I'm not gonna just scroll through this. I'm gonna actually like send a text to be like, hey, what have you been up to this weekend? Even though I know from their Instagram story sort of what they've been up to. Or I'll like get my phone out and message and be like, hey, I saw that you did this. This looked really cool. I don't know. I think I'm quite good at keeping them separate, because in my head, I'm like, I'm watching this YouTube video because I really enjoy it and I'm doing it in like my spare time. I don't know. At the end of the day, it's a hobby that turned into something. So it will still always be a hobby, but it's also work. And the two are very merged. And also, no, I don't have private accounts. I don't really use my Facebook much anymore, my personal Facebook. And the Twitter I have is my Twitter, and the Instagram I have is my Instagram. I don't really see the point in having a private account because I don't know what I would put on there that I wouldn't put on my normal one. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. I know some people who do, and that's fine. I don't think I have time to do both. My boyfriend and I sometimes struggle with trust and jealousy issues. How do you and Alfie do it? We're going to different colleges soon, and I'm worried that distance might make it even harder. Would love any help or advice that you can give. Oh, if any of you guys have any advice for this lovely lady, also leave it in the comments. So before Alfie, I was in a relationship that was so messed up and manipulative, and there was so much jealousy on my part because the other person in the relationship had absolutely no like sense of what a relationship actually was. So my jealousy was validated in that sense, and that relationship was very toxic and really not very healthy at all. So coming out of that relationship, I told myself I would never be with someone who ever made me feel unsure about where they were or what they were doing. Like that horrible sinking feeling where you're like, something's not right. I never wanted that ever again. And luckily when I met Alfie, and even now 5 years later, I have never ever had that feeling. Me and Alfie are very open. Like, I mean, half the time he's somewhere else with people I don't know, and I'm the same. And we have constant streams of communication with whoever on multiple different platforms, and we would never break that trust. Like, trust for me is hugely important, and also the same with Alfie. And so the two of us have never ever had to have a conversation where we've been like, who's that, or what are you doing there, or I feel very jealous of this, or who is this person you're hanging out with. We've just never been that couple, like, ever, which is so refreshing. But I think if you are having those, communication is like the top thing that I could advise you to do. If you are having those like little niggling feelings, you need to make sure that they are justified, and that you're not just feeling them because of your own kind of niggling thoughts. And if you are having those, the only person who can really reassure you is the other person in the relationship. So I do think it's very important to talk about those things. And if they love you and they care about you and they care about your feelings, then they'll listen and they'll reassure you and they'll support you. And hopefully then you kind of learn to build that trust back up a little bit. Also, I think it's fairly normal to feel that when someone's moving away or going off to uni. I remember one of my ex-boyfriends went off to uni, and that was really hard because up to that point it was kind of all very easygoing, and we had like all the same friends and everything was very settled. And then he went off to uni, and all of a sudden he's making all these new friends who are like tagging him in crazy nights out on Facebook, and I'm back at home like, who's this person? And like, oh, did you have a good night out? I saw you got back at 6 AM. You just have to communicate these things. And it is normal, because if you love someone and care about someone and the last thing you want to do is be hurt, then of course you're going to worry about those things. But if you are both in a really open, honest relationship, then you should just be able to talk to each other about it. Okay, last question. Which is worse, failing or never trying? If there is something you really, really want to do, and there is a reason that you're not doing it, whether that's someone else, a situation, or just your own like self-doubt, I would say I would rather know that I tried and failed than that I had never tried it at all. I think it's a huge part of learning, a huge part of growing, and it's all life experience. I would feel so much better knowing I had given everything my all and I had really tried it, than forever thinking, what if? I really hate the phrase what if, because if I start thinking, oh, what if, then I'm not taking opportunities and making the most of them, and I'm not having enough confidence in myself to follow through with things. And if I start doing that, I have to really stop myself and be like, you should never really ask yourself that question. You should only ever say, okay, that didn't work. How can I move forward from this? And what have I learned from this? And how can I make it better? Or how can I change it? That, I think, is just life and growing. Cheers. Okay, so that is the Q&A, and that is everything I'm going to answer in this video. I really hope you've enjoyed it, and I'm sorry my ramblers were a bit questioned. And I'm sorry my questions were a little bit rambly, but you know, I can't just give one-word answers to a Q&A, we all know this. I really hope you guys had a lovely weekend and that you have a super week ahead of you, and don't forget to give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Thank you for always doing that, it really means a lot to me. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the bell if you would like to be notified every time I upload. It's the quickest way of like getting onto one of my videos. And thank you for always leaving such lovely positive comments. I will see you again next week with another video. Bye!